background where studying was natural for me. But when I realized that if I go study something and I learn it, I own it, it's mine now, man, it was crazy because all through school I struggled. The last time I took an English class, my English teacher told me I was the weakest writer she ever met in her entire life.
Lovely.
Yeah, lovely. And the same year I took a speech class, and my speech teacher, he said, quote unquote, Ms. Nichols, I recommend you never speak in public, that you get a desk job. And so
That's mean.
yeah, it's just, you know, it was demotivated people, sad people, hurt people hurt, sad people make other people sad. Bottom line, don't take it personal, hurt people hurt.
That's really rad. I don't want to derail your story, 'cause your story is amazing. We are going to finish that tale. But hurt people hurt, sad people are sad. That's
they make other people sad. Sad people make other people sad because people love company. Everywhere you are, you want company. And so without taking it personal, just see where people are. And so a part of that was I had to see who I was hanging around. And, you know, miserable people want company, you know, and I had to literally be willing to not only relocate my mind, but relocate my body so I can relocate my finances, relocate my possibility, relocate my son's future. I was very clear the future my son was going to have if I didn't do something. And I was not subscribing to that, not on my watch. My son's father went to prison.
And leadership, how they tie together. Hello, thank you for joining us. All right, take it away, Annie.
So there are 3 facets of emotional intelligence that we're going to be talking about today, and you know, and there's different layers to these 3 facets. So it begins with consciousness of self. Consciousness of yourself, your abilities, your interactions, how you express yourself, and how that comes across to your colleagues, you know, professionally, how that impacts others. So consciousness of yourself, your emotions and perceptions, and how that is translated outside of your social realm. And then there's consciousness of others. So consciousness within your social realm of your fellow colleagues, of your fellow coworkers, and awareness of the abilities, emotions, and perceptions of others and how you're perceived. And then there's consciousness of the context. So the overall awareness of the settings and situations within an organization, within systemically, within the companies that you work in, and how that impacts things on a larger scale as a whole.
Maybe we'd start up a little bit of a discussion. What does emotional intelligence mean to you? So we've gone through a little bit. It's the self, it's the other, it's the system around you. Do you have any further thoughts? You may have heard emotional intelligence, that term, in the past. Is there something that comes up for you? How does it differ from regular intelligence?
Maybe it's an example of how you adapted about yourself, about the, as you said, the orders and the context. How do you react with some situations? It's an example of manner of intelligence.
Reactions, your interactions. Any thoughts over here on emotional intelligence?
I feel like it's more like how you perceive other people's emotions and how you perceive your own and how you project it.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing. It's very much about you, but it's also about how other people view you and how you view others. It's that whole dynamic, right? Makes it so interesting, but so very tricky, because these aren't things that we can necessarily very objectively point out. It's what we perceive and what we feel.
And what about on this side of the room? Any thoughts about emotional intelligence and what it means for you?
It could mean like it could mean like something that happens in the workplace and how can it affect and how employees' emotions can affect the workplace.
Right. So it's how what happens in the workplace, and you know, and how your responses or how your interactions will affect the workplace, the overall like energy, the culture, the relationships. Yeah, great, thank you. And what about over here?
So I kind of think emotional intelligence is sort of understanding your own biases, your values, and your beliefs and your attitudes, and how that could like come out in forms when you're interacting with others.
Yeah, and yourself. So we have a bit of a definition. So to be emotionally intelligent means to be able to understand and manage your own emotions. First of all, understand them, be aware that they are there, and then manage them. And those of the people around you. Of course, you cannot really control somebody else, but you can help them manage their emotions as well. And you will always somehow have an effect on other people as they will on you. So people with a high degree of emotional intelligence know what they're feeling, what their emotions mean to them, and how those emotions affect other people, and ultimately the system. So the larger work setting, group setting. And for leaders, having this ability is very, very important. It's essential for success. So as much as we need our leaders to have the basics, you know, of competency in whatever technical field, they absolutely need that. Emotional intelligence will be what sets you apart and makes it possible for you to lead a group of people or an organization. Now, a little bit of a shift.
Yeah. So how does emotional intelligence, leadership, and being awareness of self, others, and systemic translate into integrity, right? What does that mean when we tie it all together, and how does that connect to integrity? So the idea of integrity and the definition of integrity is having, it means doing the right thing in a reliable way, right? Whether if, you know, it's expected and it's explicitly stated or not, we do the right thing regardless whether if it's, you know, stated or not. It is an admired personality trait because it means that this person is grounded in who they are, their authenticity, their self, their sense of value, and they have a moral compass that doesn't waver, no matter what happens. And it literally means having a wholeness of character. So it's an integer of a whole number with no fractions. And so what that means and what that looks like in the workplace in being like having integrity, having integrity in the workplace is it's a fundamental value that employers will seek in the employees that they hire, right? So if you think about honesty, accountability, you know, integrity, and sometimes it looks like it means having those difficult conversations that even though, you know, it may not be the most comfortable thing to have, it's gonna benefit the greater good as a whole, coming from that place of integrity and value. And it is the hallmark of a person who demonstrates sound moral and ethical principles at work, right? A person who has integrity lives their values in relationships with coworkers, customers, and stakeholders. So something to reflect on as well is in thinking about integrity and your values and alignment of your values, it's also how you, you know, live your life out there as a professional and maybe the organizations that you choose, right? And really having that sound understanding of your values might align with the organization or how you can intentionally choose to be a person of integrity out there in the workplace, doing what it is that's going to be, you know, authentic and whole.
Yeah. So hopefully that link is becoming a little bit more fleshed out. To be emotionally intelligent, to know what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, to be able to read other people and the culture is very, very important for showing up with honesty and integrity at work. And this is the kind of quality that is, again, absolutely essential for you to be successful at work. You don't want to be perceived as a liar. You don't want to be perceived as somebody who doesn't do what they say they will do. This all folds into integrity, and you've got to be able to manage that and carry that day to day in your work. We wanted to inspire you a little bit with a video that I think will give us lots and lots to think about in about these issues. So how we show up emotionally at work and outside of work as well, but we are focusing on the work environment right now. And that link between being real emotionally, being vulnerable, being honest, so having that integrity, and being professional. Dave, if we can cue up the video. Okay. Should I just...
I'm not going to bullshit you. Vulnerability is hard, and it's scary, and it feels dangerous. But it's not as hard, scary, or dangerous as getting to the end of our lives and having to ask ourselves, what if I would have shown up?
Sorry. So this video is by Professor Brené Brown. She's a researcher of emotions, actually. She's done a lot of work on shame and vulnerability. So you can imagine these are some of the harder emotions to show up with at work, but very much very important to us as individuals, and ultimately will somehow come out in the work environment. So we want you to enjoy this, have a look. It's really quite a lot to think about.
I'm not going to bullshit you. Vulnerability is hard, and it's scary, and it feels dangerous. But it's not as hard, scary, or dangerous as getting to the end of our lives and having to ask ourselves, what if I would have shown up?
So one of the things that we do in our personal lives is we try to combat not being enough by pleasing and performing and perfecting. We go through our lives trying to be who we think we're supposed to be, doing and saying what we think people want to hear, putting on whatever mask or face we think we need to put on for that moment. And what that leaves us is exhausted. When we're pleasing and perfecting and performing, we end up saying yes a lot when we mean no, right? And we also end up saying no when we mean, oh, heck yes, I want to do that. I really want to do that. And you know what? Even though I have a lot of work, I want to do it now. I don't want to do it 5 pounds from now. I don't want to do it when I'm great. I don't want to do it when I've practiced. I just want to do it now. But we don't have those boundaries when we don't feel like we're worthy and enough. I have this ring. I don't know if you can see it. It's got these little spinners on it. And I bought it for my 41st birthday, the one where I aged 21 years in 12 months. And it has spinners. And my whole new thing is when someone asks me to do something now, I spin my ring 3 times before I answer. And it's my boundary ring. And what I say to myself when I'm spinning it is very simple. And it's choose discomfort over resentment. Brené, can you bring 5 dozen cookies to school tomorrow? Nope. What happens when we say, sure, I'll be glad to bring the cookies up to the school? Like, if you know me, you know I'll go right into my very high voice. Sure, I would love to. Peanut free, right? And then what happens is you're home in your kitchen, and your kids want you to be kind and gentle with them, but you're like this. I hate these people. I hate these kids. I hope they choke on my cookie, you know? So how do we do things without resentment, you know? And it takes boundaries. So in the end, I think if we take away anything from the authenticity piece, it is about the courage to be imperfect, to be vulnerable, and to set boundaries. Because the whole idea of I am enough starts with enough. Steve and I, for a long time, had a list of everything we wanted, like our achievement list. Maybe a lake house. Like every other person I know, I want a bigger house with a guest room. No one will ever come. But for some reason, it's just like this draw, right, to have the guest room. Well, when the wholehearted research came out, it fundamentally shifted the way we live, the way we parent, everything. And so we decided to make a list of everything that was happening in our lives when we felt really joyful. Like what's happening, not a want list, but like actually based on evidence, like we're the happiest when what's happening. And we looked at this list, and the list was the opposite of the want list. The want list dictated to us that we needed to work more and make more money, and the joy list meant less work and more time. Here's the part where we all struggle. Worthiness does not have prerequisites. We need to find a way to engage with the world from a place of worthiness. We need to find a way to say, I'm enough. This is who I am. Because I literally believe that our lives depend on it. So thank y'all very much.
What does it mean then to dare greatly?
To me, it means the courage to be vulnerable. It means to show up and be seen, to ask for what you need, to talk about how you're feeling, to have the hard conversations. You know, when we asked people in the research, you know, what is vulnerability to you? And let me tell you, I was raised that vulnerability is weakness, like most people.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was.
Most people think vulnerability is weakness.
Right.
And you know what? After reading Darren Greatly, what I realized, and The Gifts of Imperfection, what I realized, first of all, is I live in the space of vulnerability. And that is what has made me so successful, is my vulnerability with the audience.
For sure.
And I think that vulnerability is sort of the cornerstone of confidence. I think it's the cornerstone because
I believe that.
Because unless you can allow yourself to take the risk, to be open, to live as a wholehearted person, when you can do that, you recognize that you're really just like everybody else. And that gives you the confidence to be yourself, which is all you really need in life, is to be more of yourself.
And I do believe, you know, coming from vulnerability is weakness, when we ask people, what is vulnerability? And they said things to us like, the first date after my divorce, trying to get pregnant after my third miscarriage, sitting with my wife who has stage 4 breast cancer, making plans for our young children. You know, the biggest examples that came up from the research was picking up the phone and making a call to someone who's just had a great loss.
Oh, yes.
You know, and I thought about that in my own life. Like, you know, there's the phone. I walk up to it and I'm like, what am I going to say?
What am I going to say? That's what everybody fears.
That's going to make it better.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can say except I'm here, I'm hurting with you, you're not alone. But you know what? I'll call in an hour. And then I come back an hour, I'm like, oh man, it's dinner time. I'm going to make a casserole. I'm going to make an expensive casserole.
We've all done that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what happens when an hour turns into a day, turns into a week, and then it's a month later, and you run into that friend at the grocery store?
Well, you know what?
And you didn't call.
Just to show up. That's all people want.
That's
it's just
it.
It's for you to show up and say, I don't know what to say, but I'm here.
I can't fix this, but I'll walk through the pain with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, but then what is the feeling that we get when we make the call and we hang up? To me, that feeling is when I'm aligned with my values. And courage is my value.
Absolutely.
And you can't get to courage without walking through vulnerability, period.
It was touching and an eye-opener that it's nice to know that it's okay for us to be vulnerable, because sometimes we feel that we have to be great in a lot of things, but then it's okay also that to think that we are also human and we have to count in these weaknesses that we have.
Yeah, I'll just rephrase. She said it's okay to be vulnerable, right?
Thank you that we feel. Thank you for that. We feel like we have to have it together, but it's also okay to accept that we are human too, right? And that it's like, and it's okay to be vulnerable, and to you know, accept that. Yeah.
What do you find is the link of all of this to work and to professionalism? So we're here exploring not only emotional intelligence, but how this matters for the workplace and in the workplace. Any thoughts?
If somebody stays happy, I mean, the work mode will be changing.
Right.
So
yes, all of this is important for feeling happy and whole, right? In the workplace.
I think in the workplace, there are things that we can control, and I think we should also remind ourselves that some decisions that we make we can just let go of it and move forward and think of what else can we do next.
And getting skilled in emotional intelligence should be very helpful, right? All of this, you don't want this just bubbling inside you and not being expressed and managed properly. And that's what our workshop is about.
And what I want to say is at workplace is being ourselves, who we are. And it's not only to please others, but whatever we feel, if we feel that the right vulnerability, that is what we have to be. Sometimes we just, as they said, we want to say no, but we say yes, but we are going to hurt ourselves, and there is no any benefit out of it.
But there are different ways of being yourself in the workplace, and I think the challenge is to manage ourselves in such a way that it is helpful for us, helpful for others, and the organization. It isn't just about coming into work and crying every day because you feel like it, right? It's or laughing all the time because you feel happy. It's that management of emotion and being able to read other people so that the organization becomes stronger because of that.
And it also comes into that aspect of the awareness of self, where we're also self-caring, taking care of ourselves, giving space for these emotions and these feelings and these thoughts, so that this way we can also honor ourselves from within, so that we can come from this place of balance, but also, we can come from this place of balance so that we can interact with people in a way that is in integrity as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, maybe we'll move to our little bit of an exercise. So we'll make maybe 3 groups. I think that'll work well. We have these 3 case studies. So little examples of workplace situations that are uncomfortable one way or another. So we want you to take a look, read through them. They're not very long. You should be able to identify with the situation that's in the case study. And then think about there are a couple of questions we have there in the handout. Just think through the situation from an emotional intelligence perspective. Okay? Okay, before we hand that out, we'll go through. Sorry.
Dave has a copy of it.
I have it. Oh, you did? Yes, sorry. So before I hand that out, yes, we will hand out to you this tool that we think is quite useful for effective communication that focuses on your emotions and your awareness of your emotions. Okay, have a look here. On the other side of the handout, you'll see some components of emotional intelligence. So what all of that, oh yeah, sorry about that. So if you see on the first page, we have, there it is, acceptance and acknowledgement. So whenever you're facing a situation that's delicate, difficult, causing conflict either inside, within yourself, or with others, there is this first stage that we call acceptance and acknowledgement. So
yeah, so if you think about it in the context of work, right, there are agreements that are being created all the time in the realm of professionalism. So, you know, being at work on time, making sure the deadlines are met, you know, having, getting in communication with coworkers to ensure that, you know, the workflow works as a whole, and communicating and asking for help, right? So these are all agreements that are being created in a professional realm. So the second part of that is impact and ownership. So if there was a broken agreement, let's just say you did not get into communication and there were breakdowns and you know, deadlines were not being met, or something happened, right? Things happen in our lives and we were not able to make it to work on time, you know, we would own and acknowledge the impact that this has had, right? Because if you think about it, you keep it to yourself, it kind of festers, right? We might feel embarrassed or ashamed, and that's actually an impact of, you know, in like being out of integrity, not as a moral conversation, but just that integrity, you know, is out, right? And that happens all the time. But we own and acknowledge the impact that this has had on you as an individual as a result of breaking the agreement, from a place of accountability. And then we acknowledge the impact that the broken agreement has had on your relationship to another, to a coworker, to an individual, to a group that was involved. And then we acknowledge how this has impacted the functionality and effectiveness of the working dynamics between you, the group, and the collective objective and goal. So just know that this might be an uncomfortable conversation, but this is also an immensely impactful and valuable conversation to have. And every time we do this, we become bigger, right? And it goes back to Brené's video about when you make that call and you hang up, you know that you're, you know, you're in alignment with your values and your integrity.
yeah, we then want to move to repair whatever's been broken and restore peace and honesty together. So we want to create a plan of action for this new agreement. So let's say with this example of lateness, you want to make sure I will give you a call if I'm about to be late, or I will make sure that I leave on time and really own up to my tendency to being late, for example. And then finally, we want to create and maintain a system of accountability so that there's a check-in in place for all parties to have as a reference, so that the system sort of becomes whole again. All right. Now on the other side, I'll hand out the case studies, and this should be very helpful in analyzing the case studies. What are some of the components of emotional intelligence? What are we talking about specifically? So we've talked about self-awareness. What am I feeling? What are others feeling by extension? Self-regulation. You want to make sure you manage those emotions and you don't just you know, fly off the handle, you know, or get your mood to control your, you know, workflow. There's motivation, which is a passion for work despite, you know, circumstances that aren't always helpful. There's empathy, so the ability to understand other people and be in their shoes, so to speak. And then social skills, and those are many, but basically being able to manage the dynamics between a larger number of people. So you have that. We'll take maybe 5 minutes to read through these case studies. And then we'll discuss. I can give you more copies. Get more copies of. Okay, they are doing one as well.
They're doing one, and this is one group, yes?
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah, let's do those two.
Yeah. There you go. Take us a few minutes to read through. For those of you joining online, we're talking about these case studies the groups are discussing right now. I'll put them up for you to read. So there's one, case study 1. I'll give you the second one. Yes? Yes. It's Aisha. Sorry about that. Yes. And the third one. Yes. Yep. Number 1. Yeah, I just want the people joining us online to be able to read through these. Okay. Be another minute. Who wants to give us a little bit of their thoughts on the cases? Who wants to start? Which group? One? Okay, we'll start with one. So we have Myra. She's starting a new job as a marketing assistant and has some trouble keeping up with the pace that's expected of her. Oh, you are too? Okay. So we have Aisha. She is starting as a junior project manager, really excited about this one-year contract. It might not be perfect, but it's a great start for her, or so she thinks, until she gets a little bit into it and notices that the senior project manager is not really giving her perhaps as many tasks as she'd like, and she doesn't seem to be learning that much on this great, cool contract. So she's thinking maybe it's better to look for something else instead of wasting time with this company. What emotional intelligence components do you guys find are at work here? What are we talking about? Right? Self-awareness probably is going to happen with all the cases, right? So she's feeling frustrated.
So self-awareness is important because the first thing we need to be efficient in the job is to be confident, right? Whether whatever happens around us, we don't have to be much judged for that, but we have to be confident. First of all, we have to be more effective, right? Then the second one will be the motivation, because what drives us to do our work, right? Yeah, so we can't losing our job. We can't be get out of the job just because someone else is not paying attention on us, right? We have to be motivated by ourselves. Whatever the other person is doing, we should not care. We just keep doing our best, right? And the third one will be the social skill, right? Yeah, effective in leading change and expertise in building and leading teams. But here is the thing that the manager is not paying attention to him, right? So the thing is, she just have to keep doing her best. Whether the manager is not paying attention, the time will come when the manager will be himself be promoting her or her, because when she will be doing good, ultimately indirectly the manager will be focusing on her at the time when she will be doing good, right? So she had to do good to be remarkable, right? So, yeah.
Anything you want to add? Thank you very much. That's all. So I think you've addressed actually the three questions we have there. So you've addressed why is it important for her to manage this situation constructively. We want to make sure we start off our careers, think, on the right foot, right? Things might not be going as well as we'd like, but we need to persist and have that internal motivation to do a good job, even if our manager is not so supportive or seems not so supportive. What specifically could she do at this 1 month mark to go forward constructively? What do you think specifically she could do? And you mentioned social skill there.
She could speak to her manager.
Yeah, she could somehow start a conversation from a place of vulnerability. Yes, it's difficult to do, but she could try it, right? Say, I'm feeling a little bit maybe disengaged. What can I do? She might also not realize that the manager has other tasks or other big projects where she's just not able to offer her attention, or hasn't been able to, right, over the last few weeks. So having that kind of patience and, but proactively starting a conversation.
She could also offer, saying, okay, then I can do this. Would you like me to do more than the task that is at hand? So therefore, then I would say, can I do this or can I do that? Right. Additional to the task that is given to me. Solution to the problem. Positive, constructive. Yes.
Yeah, very good point. So you see, this not so good situation could actually really be used in a constructive way, and you will show leadership by showing up to the project manager and expressing that you want to make the situation as good as possible. What can you do? What more can you do? can you be of help and of assistance?
And it's transforming that solution or that problem into a solution, and really taking every experience as a learning opportunity as well.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for Case Study 2 group. Who would like to go next?
Do you guys want to go? You have
Case Study
Myra?
3.
Sandor. Yes, Sandor. Okay.
Okay, so Sander just started his new job in biotech engineering as a lab technician. It's what he wanted, working to advance scientific knowledge and learn new technologies. His team is 5 people, 2 of whom seem to be taking sick days all the time. At least this is what Sanders' colleague says. The colleague started 3 months earlier, also as a technician. The company retreat is coming up, and Sander expects there will be team-building activities he'll have to engage in. The colleague seems annoyed at the prospect of this retreat. Why does it matter if some people just don't work as much as others? So the whole idea of team spirit is a joke, he whispers to Sander one day, and Sander feels trapped and uncomfortable, but irritated at the other team members just like his colleague. So
what do you guys think is going on here? What are some of the main drivers?
So, like, for the components, we felt like he was more self-aware, self-regulation, motivation, and social skills, mainly because he's trying to, like, he's more aware of his own feelings towards his own team members. And, but I think at the moment he doesn't have, like, the ability to actually, like, not control, but like help his other team members like have the same like ideal views that he wants in order to succeed. And then with the other colleague, like he lacks motivation. So I think that kind of motivation is also rubbing off onto Sander. So it's causing him to be like, okay, what's the point? How can I get through to these other people when they're kind of like, I guess, slacking and not pulling their best weight into this group? And then as for social skills, I like personally for me though, I feel like he's afraid to bring up to his other members.
Yeah. Courage, right? Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that frustration, not wanting to come across as a complainer, not wanting to lose your friendship or that collegial conversation, but wanting to move positively, right? Somehow.
So drawing back from those 3 components of emotional intelligence that we talked about earlier, of the awareness of self, awareness of others, and awareness as an organization, like what are some actions coming from a place of vulnerability that Sanders can do to manage the situation?
Well, personally, to me, I feel like he would have to maybe go to like higher management to try to find a solution. If him actually going to his team's not working, I would say go to higher management. They could try to like be like the middle ground to help like navigate like a proper conversation within his group to be like, okay, this needs to be done. How can we help you? Here's some like solutions, and just figure out what to do from there. So then it's more easier for them when they have to do like that team building exercise. So it's more like harmonious and like, I guess, more enjoyable for all of them rather than like dreadful and annoying according to one of the colleagues. But yeah.
We also think that he should continue and go ahead for that retreat with an open mind and do those activities in the best way possible, because there's a chance that once they start interacting, they might build up an understanding and respect amongst team members, which might help him feel better about them and be able to address them or, be vulnerable in front of them or confront the whole situation in a better manner rather than dealing with people when he doesn't really know them. Right. So I think giving that a fair chance, like the retreat should be given a fair chance, irrespective of the fact whatever his colleague feels. Yeah, and I think it's important to have his own opinion and emotions in place, and without being influenced by another person's perception of the whole team.
Right. And that takes control, emotional control, right?
And also openness and not coming from assumptions. Yeah.
He doesn't know why these people are taking sick days. Maybe they're not getting paid. Maybe they have complex healthcare needs. And as irritating as it is, you want to, control what you're showing up with to other people, because you may really be misjudging the situation.
Yes, I think the most important in this case, for example, is highlight the importance of the work as a group, right? The group is more important than the case. So independent of try to figure out what's happening with that colleague, especially, specifically, the most important is highlight the collective goals. So in this case, maybe try to say, okay, you are in a situation upset, I can understand that, but what you can contribute, as a colleague said in the last group, try to take for that person what he can do, what she can contribute is. Yes.
Yeah. He can talk to the friend, right? Before the retreat and say, listen, maybe it's not like this. I'm having these thoughts. So they already have a bit of a relationship. So they don't have to keep adding the negative. They can actually, build something on this. Yeah. Okay.
And last but not least, case study 1 group.
Yes. Yes. So we have Myra starting as a marketing assistant with a large retail company. It's a very fast-paced environment, and little can wait. She needs to know what to do. She's in social media, so it's very much about, posting stuff today and tomorrow. So she has 3 deadlines coming up with post ideas and planning them into the larger company strategy. She feels her muscles stiffen and this feeling of panic take over because she's not keeping up. And she really feels she should talk with a specialist to see what was done in the last quarter, how they have handled this before. Her co-workers are going for lunch, but she just is too busy. She's brushing them off for the 2nd time this week. What are you guys thinking? What is relevant here as far as emotional intelligence?
So we talked about some self-awareness that's important for Myra here, because as her job is to be in the know-all, she needs to be aware of her own limits as well, since she's a new employee. The demands are high, and if she's not able to keep up with it, she has to be able to admit that to herself first before addressing her concerns. So we also talked about having social skills. Social skills. So that comes into play, as you mentioned, that she's brushing her coworkers off and that she needs to talk to a specialist, but she's setting up her own barriers because she wants to be able to do everything herself, that she's not able to reach out and ask for help when she clearly needs it as well. She needs some form of guidance. And we also talk about motivation. If this is I would imagine it to be really stressful to be in her position. So if this is a long-term situation that keeps happening to her, she'll be stressed and she'll lose motivation to do her job as well. So that's kind of what we talked about. Is there anything you want to add? No, okay.
And it matters for her to approach the situation constructively, right? You don't want to be losing your footing in the first few months on the job. And what do you think she can do? So yes, checking in with herself, right? First of all, understanding she is feeling what she's feeling. She's mentioning, neck pain and physical stress. Is there something in particular she can do about that? Probably get a massage, go for a walk, 5 minutes.
The self-regulation also, because it shows physically in her health. Sorry, I mean it manifests. So now it's time for her to talk to the specialist to see what has been happening or how was her work done previously, so that she knows whether she's doing the right thing, and also to lessen her burden.
That's right. She doesn't have to carry this herself, right? It's a misperception, I think, that we have to do everything ourselves, especially when you're starting in a job. So having that self-awareness, checking yourself, and then moving towards some constructive action. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for contributing. How did you find these exercises? Is it useful to think through these scenarios, that kind of thing? Happens to us all the time, doesn't it? One way or another. So having a little bit of vocabulary about emotion connected to emotional intelligence should be helpful, you know. There's so many resources, books and videos, if you want to learn more, if you want to get a better understanding of why it is you're feeling what you're feeling, what are other people likely to be feeling, how do you move to self-regulate, to keep yourself motivated, to keep, you know, understanding people better, and then moving on constructively within a larger setting. I think there's lots and lots that you can do.
And just, you know, the work is ongoing, right? It's not a one-time thing. It is the beginning of something, and it's something that we keep practicing and cultivating, right? So, you know, we have a tool now to work with, and there might be times when it's challenging, but just know that, you know, and I love that video at the end when Brene said that the path to courage is vulnerability. Right? So we continue to practice, we continue to cultivate, and we continue, you know, from that place of self to forgive ourselves, right? When we couldn't do something in the way that we thought we would do it, and accept that as a learning experience and continue to move forward. And just know that, you know, like any skill, it takes time to cultivate, right?
Yeah. What do you think about this quote, guys? Professional is not a label you give yourself. It's a description you hope others will apply to you. Do you see the link between what we've talked about, all this vulnerability, all this soft stuff, and to professionalism? We want to make sure we highlight this at this workshop. This isn't just about what you feel. It's how that matters for the workplace and the link to professionalism.
It is not about describing us as professional. It is describing our work as professional. Right? We have to do that kind of work, that kind of professional work, so that we will be called as a professional. We don't have to just dress a formal suit that we will be called as a professional, right? We have to do, we have to do that work so that we will be gaining that personality. Yeah.
To be professional in as to our we portray our disposition, that if within the workplace this is how you would handle a situation rather than fly off the handle. So because somebody irritates you, then the professional way of dealing with a situation is, am I self-aware? Am I self-conscious as to how am I going to speak to somebody in a professional manner? Then you can look at me and say, no, you are now acting in a professional sense. That's right. Thank you.
Yeah. So much of this is relational, right? It's what other people, how they perceive you and how you perceive them. So we hope to inspire with this with this quote, some reflections and takeaways for this session. As Annie said, I think this is just always a beginning, right? This never ever ends. You start on this journey with some self-awareness, you gain more as you mature, as you go through different jobs. It's always a work in progress, and that's fine. That's just how it is. Yeah, I think accepting that. There's always so much to improve, and that's fine. Just help yourself and help others on that journey.
So, with all of this rich discussion and learning that happened today, what is one thing that opened up for you through your participation today? And, you know, looking through these questions, if anybody would like to share something that opened up for you today, something that you'll do differently, think differently moving forward towards this place of, you know, accountability, and also just the forgiveness and understanding that that's a path, but like moving towards this path of integrity. And what else?
Yeah, and it takes courage to talk about this stuff, but we are in a safe space, right? We can share this together. This is why workshops like this exist, so we can practice being vulnerable.
I thought interesting how we saw in the video with Mrs. Brown said that the recognizing about their vulnerability could take us to the confidence stage. So it's Oprah, as I agree with her, right? It's a process. When you recognize that, you build all of your skills and you get confident. It's most important at the workplace for sure.
Yeah, it's a funny link. It's confidence isn't about just, oh, here I am. It's actually through this very uncomfortable moment of or place of vulnerability.
And I think is the important thing is just don't be judgmental. Like always, that's very important because at workplace we always think we judge before we know what's happening. So it's not all about me. Right. So that's all we have to always say. So people, we don't know what they are going through. That's so right. If we are not judgmental, I think we will have, we will do our work properly. We just, yeah, I think that's
Great, and we had someone over here.
Yeah.
The video that we watched really hit me hard.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, it is. That's why when I was watching it and pondering in every word that she was saying, wow, oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. Oh, so it can be. So I can let go of the things. Now it's easier for me to look back as part of my reflective practice. That looking back on the things that you can't control, that it's okay that you make mistakes and then move on what else or think of another steps on how could you improve the things that you have done or to avoid those things in the future.
And to have that empathy for others. Right? Yes.
So I can understand my view, but I want to understand other people's view. So
right. Yeah.
That's the
we don't know what others are feeling necessarily, right? Or where they're coming from. So having greater self-awareness of yourself typically will make it easier for you to understand others. So these components of EI, emotional intelligence, really work together. It's not like one thing, it's really a cycle. That one thing, strength in one, reinforces another. Yes. Yeah, working on yourself first before being able to affect others constructively. Yeah. Thank you so much. Anything else, Annie?
Well, here are some resources. So we will send this out to the organizers and make sure to get the slide deck out to you. Thank you for joining us today. We hope that the time that you spent with us was valuable and the tool that you found was helpful and impactful, and will hopefully create some clarity moving forward. When we're navigating the world of professional and also life as well.
Yeah.
So we actually would love to hear your feedback about the workshop. And right here, there is a QR code for you. If you have a QR code to scan, it will populate a survey where we would love to hear your feedback. Right over here, I've also placed a sign for the QR code as well to help us to know, how we can improve these workshops for you in the future, so that we can continue this conversation and learning together. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Make sure you check out the career services lineup for this week, Career Week, and outside of this week. They always have so much going on that helps with career-related skills, and the Leadership Academy as well. Centennial Leadership Academy, Leadership Passport, all helpful tools to get you to that better place in your life and to help you reach your goals, okay? Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just out.
It'll take you to the page, yeah.
Great. Thank you. And on your way out, on the window outside in the hallway, we've posted a schedule for the events that are happening at Progress this week for Career Week as well, so check it out. Thank you so much.
Grab some notebooks, some buttons. I don't know about the